You conceive of the American Freedom Alliance?
Well, I was one of the founders of the Israel Christian Nexus, which is an organization which brought together Jews and Christians in order to promote, to build bridges between the support of Israel in both communities. And I found that just working on Israel issues, which is actually something I've been doing as a journalist for nearly 10 years, was too limiting. I felt that the problems that Israel faces are really global problems. The global jihad, the rise of radical Islam, multiculturalism and cultural moral relativism are all things that undermine, that are assaults on Western civilization. So I felt that I needed to broaden the scope of what I was doing. And so I formed a new organization called the American Freedom Alliance about 2 years ago. And since then we've had a rapid run of activities. We are holding out this conference on Sunday. Is going to be our third international conference in less than 12 months. We've held many symposia, seminars and lectures on issues that are of deep concern to us. We have a full program laid out for next year, which includes a summit of academic leaders in February, a conference on human rights in London in March, a conference on the media in June, and in addition, in September, we're holding an international commemoration of the 70th anniversary of the Munich conference, where Czechoslovakia was basically given to Hitler on a platter by Neville Chamberlain and Edouard Daladier of France. And that's going to be a very important event because we hope to have former leaders of the world's democracies in attendance. One of them will be John Howard of Australia.
Oh, great.
Yes, he's going to be receiving the Winston S. Churchill Medal of Courage Award.
Oh. What were you doing at Harvard 4 years ago?
I was studying at the Kennedy School of Government as on a scholarship, a year-long scholarship. And I'm actually now completing my master's at Harvard.
Oh, good deal. And was that time well spent?
It was a wonderful year.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to be back in the academia and to see how things have changed since I've been a law student in Australia in the 1970s.
All right, when did you graduate law school?
In 1982.
Oh. So when did you come to the States?
I came to the States in 1983, 84, 1984.
And what have you primarily been doing?
Well, in that time I was working as a fundraiser. I created my own organization, my own company, which raised money for the Israeli internet industry in the 1990s. And I worked at the same time as a journalist. And I've been working as a journalist for the last 12 years.
And what do you mainly write about?
Mostly in Israel and the Middle East. They're the main issues, but now in the last few years I've broadened my scope. We actually offer a newsletter now in which I contribute a piece every week, the lead article, and it addresses the problems we face as a civilization, not just problems of Israel.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now there are a lot of people plowing similar ground to what you're doing. What do you think are some of your unique abilities?
Well, I think that the American Freedom Alliance, I wouldn't talk about my abilities so much as the focus of our organization. Yes, it's true, there are many organizations who are concerned about similar issues, but none of them are approaching them in quite the same way as we are. We believe that there's a process for both, for educating people, building awareness, building alliances, which we see as extremely important and is actually part of the name of our organization, and then translating that into activism. And as I said, that many of the organizations it's true, there's Foundation for the Defense of Democracy and the Center for Security Policy, and all of these organizations, and David Horowitz Freedom Center, all of them actually we cooperate with and work with. But none of them are doing conferences on the scale, international conferences on the scale that we're doing. And none of them are so focused on building these alliances in order to put pressure on our political process to address the problems that we face as a civilization. I think we're one of the only organizations to see these issues in terms of civilizational problems. whereas many of the organizations are focused on American security. We see this as a world problem, and we see that the fate of Europe as important to us as the fate of the United States. Because without Europe, we lose half of our civilization, and we can't afford that.
Is Europe lost?
I don't think it's lost. I spent a lot of time in Europe, and I think that the Europeans just need time to become aware of the real problems. I mean, what happens is when an overemphasis is placed on multiculturalism, people tend to think that all cultures are equal and all religions are equal. And so if one religion is a religion of peace, then all religions must be a religion of peace. If all people just want peace in their lives, then, I mean, if one set of people wants peace in their lives, then all people must want the same things. And it's an interesting homogenization of attitudes, even though there's a supposed respect for individual practices, religious practice and cultural practices. So, so the Europeans have fallen into this multicultural mindset, which has become almost a religion on its own. And when they start understanding that their country and their society and their polity is at risk of collapse, I think they will respond and they will understand that they can't abide minorities within their midst who don't abide by Western civilized values.
Are you hopeful or pessimistic about Europe?
Well, I'm hopeful about Western civilization. The European countries themselves, it's very hard to say whether I'm hopeful or not. I mean, I'm really waiting to see what kind of political leadership they produce. You have Berlusconi, Merkel, Sarkozy, Brown well, not Brown so much, but those the three former leaders I named, who are cognizant, I think, of these issues, even if they don't have the political will right now to take the measures they need to. But there is the Europeans, if they produce the kind of leadership they need, who are prepared to take draconian measures to protect their societies from collapse, then there's a future. But we're going to have to wait and see.
Is your organization exclusively for right-wingers, by right-wingers, or do you reach across the aisle?
No, I wouldn't say that we're right-wing at all, and we don't take any political positions or religious positions or abide by any political credo, not at all. My objective is to steer the organization right down the middle and to bring in individuals from all sides. Because the causes we fight for are what I would consider to be traditional liberal causes. Academic freedom has been a feature of American life for nearly 100 years. It was a liberal concept and should be supported by liberals. The collapse of Europe should be a concern to everybody, not just conservatives. Bias in the media, I think, is the same thing. So I really, we are what I would consider to be middle of the roaders. Although my personal opinions may be different, the organization, as distinct from Avis or from anybody associated with us, is focused on an idea that we are open to everybody to join us in causes which everybody should support.
Yet all the speakers you've named are all right-wing.
That's true, and it's unfortunate. It's not through lack of trying, I can assure you. We certainly wanted more liberal speakers to attend the conferences that we've run. And the Clubs of Europe conference did have liberal speakers, and there were some from many of the seminars we've run. For instance, we ran a seminar on the the causes and consequences of anti-Americanism around the world. And then we had a right-winger, a centrist, and a leftist on stage. And that's what we try and do with all the conferences.